Hello everyone, it's John from IT Skills Academy. This is the third video in a series of videos where we are creating the inventory management system using PHP, MySQL, JavaScript, and also Bootstrap CSS. So in this video we'll be editing and deleting the suppliers that we have created in the previous videos. So without so much ado, let's get started. And so the first thing that we are going to do is to write the PHP script that will help us to edit the suppliers. So one of the things that I have done is to replace this. So previously we had typed a button, so I have changed that to a link, and I have linked that to a page I'm calling edit underscore supplier.php. So I have not yet created that page. We'll be creating it with you step by step, and I'm also calling the ID of the supplier because we'll be requiring that. So the way I've done that is I've said edit underscore suppliers.php question mark, and then ID is equals to, and then here I'm just calling the specific ID. So now that means that if I come and point at this button edit, down here I should see edit suppliers.php and ID is equals to 1, and this the ID will be equal to 2. So that's what we have so far there. So the next thing that I want us to create is the edit suppliers.php page. So I'll just come here and I'll create a file and call it edit underscore suppliers.php. So now this edit underscore supplier.php will contain the form that we are going to use to edit the supplier. So to make the work easier, I'm just going to come and pick my template page here, and I'll just come and paste that code there. And so now after that I'll just come and change this to not an empty page but edit suppliers. So I can just get rid of that. So now down here I want to come and get rid of this. So within this container fluid I want to come and create a div with a class of low, and within that I'm going to come and have another div with a class of col12. So here I'm using the Bootstrap classes. So inside the div that has 12 columns, I'm just going to come and create a card inside that. And so here I'm creating the card body. So I say card or div with a class of card body. Now inside here we want to come and have the card title. So maybe we can just come and say card title. So now within the card title we are going to come and have maybe a h4, and here we can just come and say edit suppliers form. So that's just the title there. Now below that we can now come and have our form that will have a method of post. For the action we are going to leave it empty for now, and inside the form we are now going to come and have the label, and that should be for the supplier name, and here we are going to come and have supplier name. So now below that we're going to have the input with a type of text. So input, and the type should be text, and it should also have a class. So we come and say class is equals to we use the Bootstrap class, so form control, and because I need one for the supplier contract, I duplicate that, and so this should be contact as well as this, so contact, and here we should also have name is equals to supplier underscore contact, and we'll also put a value here, so we can just come and say value is equals to, we'll be putting some stuff inside there. So we're also going to have the same for this, so value is equals to, so this should be typed properly, so value, and we're also going to have this with the name of supplier name, and down here we're also going to have another input with a class of submit, all that should be not type but not class but type should be submit. The class should be btn success. It should also have a name of submit, yeah, and I think that's all. We have our form there, so we can now go to the browser here and we try to locate that page, so that is edit suppliers.php. Yes, and this is the form, so we can just come and fix this, edit true here. So I can just come and maybe put a break here, and we can also come and make this to be block, so btn block, yeah, so like that. Alright, so now the form is good. Now what we want to do is we want to head on to the suppliers here, and as you can see we are able to get the specific ID. So that means that in our edit underscore suppliers we are supposed to get the ID. So back to the edit underscore suppliers, and here I'm writing some PHP script that will help us to get the ID, because we are passing the ID through this specific link. So through the address we are able to get the link. So here we're just going to come and say PHP, and here we say if is set, and we are using the get method, so I say $ underscore get, and if we are able to get that through the submit, all this should be ID, sorry, so ID, and so if we're able to do that, then we can store the ID that we have collected in a variable called ID, and we are now getting the ID from this get method. So as simple as that. So maybe I can below here come and try to see if I can get the ID. So PHP equal ID. So we can now try and see if we can get the ID. So I'm heading back to the suppliers, and then I hit on edit. Yes, and I'm able to get the ID. Let's try with the second one. So yes, I'm able to get the ID, so things are working as expected. So I can get rid of that, and now here we want to come and write some PHP script that will help us to get the data from the database where the ID is the ID that we are getting. So here I will write some PHP script, and so the first thing that we'll do is to require the database. So I say require, and this should be in includes and con.php. So that is the page that contains the script that is helping us connect to the database. So assuming that we are accessing the database successfully, we want to come and create or want to come and use the select to select the data from the database. So we say is equals to select all from suppliers. We want to create a query that will help us to fetch the data from the database. In fact, I'm going to comment that out here and say create a query that will fetch data from the database. And so now down here we are saying results is equals to mysqli underscore query, and we are giving that the parameters con if the connection to the database is successful or is true, and we also testing the SQL if it was able to select the data from the suppliers table. So we terminate that, and then the next thing that we are checking is if we have a data in the database or the form. So a database, and now to be able to do that we are having the if statement, and the condition for this is if less is equal to, so if that returns true, then the first thing that we want to do is to do the count, and I will be doing that with the help of mysql underscore num underscore laws, and that should have the param res. Then after that we want now to check if the variable count is less or is greater than 0. So if it is greater than 0, then it means we have some data in the database, and we can use the while loop with the fetch a sock to fetch the data. So here we should come and say laws is equals to mysqli underscore fetch underscore a sock, and that should have the variable less or result. So if that is successful, then we can store the data in the laws in this variable. So the first will be supplier underscore name, so this will be $laws, and it is the supplier underscore name, and we should duplicate this to also get the supplier contact. So contact just like that. So those are the only two stuff that we need there. Now we want to come and have our inputs inside this PHP code. So to be able to do that, I will just come and terminate that and close that PHP there. So inside here we can have this, so we can just cut that and have it inside here. So we can push this a little somewhere there. Yes, so now this means that we can be able to have the data in these specific fields. So but to be able to do that, we need to go to the value, and within the value now we want to come and echo the supplier name, and we also want to come and as well echo the supplier contact. So here we say PHP, so echo supplier underscore contact. Yeah, so as simple as that. But one more thing here, this should be where the ID is equal to the ID that we are getting from the form. So here we should say where ID is equals to a set of single quotes, so the variable ID. So this is the ID that we have on top here, so this. So hoping that is working, so let's test that. So I just come and pick one here, the John Doe. I hit on edit, and here we don't have anything, so seems we have a problem. Alright, so here we should not have this set of double quotes, so we should come and get rid of this, and that I hope should fix our problem. So I can just come and hit on edit, and as you can see we are able to get the suppliers data. So we can try with the second record that we have. So we hit on edit here, and here we can get the Jane Doe. So it now means that we are able to get the records based on the ID, and so now it means we can be able to edit that. So we are going to go to our form here, and we are going to have the action. So we are going to come and say edit underscore suppliers, or let me just come and call it update. So update suppliers.php. So this is a page that we have not yet created, and we'll be creating that. So update, and I want to have this in the includes folder. So I say includes, and so now let's try to create that specific a page, that PHP script that will help us to update the suppliers. So in the includes here, I'm just going to come and create a new file and call it edit underscore suppliers.php. And so now inside here, the first thing that we are going to do is to require the database connection. So I'll just come and say PHP. So can say connect to the database, and so here I will come and require, and I'm requiring the con.php. So now after that I want to come and get the data collected. So get form data. So get form data, and I'm going to come and use the if is set. And so here I'm saying the post method, because I'm using the form to collect the data, and this is when the submit button is clicked. So if the submit button is clicked, we want to grab all the data from the form and store it in this variable. So the first variable will be supplier underscore name, so that will be equal to the name that we have collected from the user. So this should be supplier name. So remember, in our edit a supplier, in the form we have the name, supplier name, and we also have the supplier contact. So we should also come and duplicate this. So we have these as contact, and as well as this one should be contact. So now, assuming that we are able to get those records and store them in those variables, now we want to come and update the table suppliers. So here I'm creating a variable, call it SQL, set it to equal to update suppliers set. So here we are setting the supplier name, is equals to the supplier name we have collected from the user or the form. This should be in a set of single quotes, and because we have another one down here, we have to put a comma, and then we say supplier underscore contact. So this should be equal to a set of single quotes, supplier contact. And now down here we should come and say where ID is equal to the ID that we are getting from the form. We should actually have ID here. ID is equals to post ID. So this now means that in this form we should be able to get the ID. So I can just come here and have the input, and this one will be hidden, and it should have the value ID. So we just come and echo the ID here. So PHP echo ID, and we should give it the name is equals to ID. So now that means that we can be able to get the ID here and update the suppliers where the ID is that specific ID. And now here we want to come and check if that was successful. So we create a result and say is equals to mysqli underscore query. So we are first of all testing the connection, and we also testing if the database was, or the table was updated. And now down here we are now using the if statement to check if that was correct. So we say the condition should be if result is equal true. We should redirect the user, so handler, and this should have the location should be suppliers.php, and we cross that there. So these are the PHP script that we need to update the form or the table suppliers. So we can try and check if that is working. And so I'll just come and edit the very first one here, and I'll change it to John. Then I hit on submit. Oh, sorry, we have a problem with this page. Sorry, so we are calling these edit suppliers, so we should also have these as edit suppliers. So let's confirm that. I think I called it update. This should be update. Let me just come and rename it, because I was intending to call it update, like that. So this should remain as update suppliers.php. So I should refresh that, and this one I'm calling it John, and then I hit on submit. Yes, and as you can see, the record was updated successfully. We have John Mulidi there. So the edit is working fine. So we can also try to edit this. Maybe we can just come and add something else there. Check this to 33, then submit. Yeah, and that is working successfully. So now we want to have the PHP script that will help us to delete a record if we want to do that. So we head on back to, so we can first of all get rid of this as well as this. So we get to the suppliers. So this one should also have the ID. So we can just come and copy this one. We have it inside here, and we're just going to come and change this name to delete, and we are getting the ID. And so now we can head on to the includes and have the delete underscore supplier.php. And so inside here we can write the PHP script that will help us to delete the records. So PHP. So this is very easy. So down here we want to come and get the ID. So we'll use the if is set, and so that should be using the get method. So underscore get, and here we are getting the ID. So that should be in a set of single quotes, and now we should store the ID in a variable called ID. So this ID that we are getting through this get method is the one that we are storing in this variable. So we close that. So now down here we can just come and say variable SQL is equals to delete from suppliers, and here we are saying where ID is equals to the ID that we have collected using the get method. And so we are now coming here down to create the results, and we are saying variable less is equals to MySQLi query, and should have the con and the SQL. And so it means now that we also need to require the database connection. So we say con.php like that. So down here we are now saying if res is equal to, and then now we should be taken to the suppliers.php. so location suppliers.php. So as simple as that. So this is the PHP script that should help us to delete the records. So let's see if that works. So head on back to this prior table here. I will flash that. So after that I can just come and try to delete this record. So I just hit on delete, and we have a broken link. So let's try to fix that. So delete suppliers. Yeah, so again we should have this as delete supplier. So just change that to delete supplier. We try to refresh that, and then now I can try to delete it. Still have a problem. Delete underscore supplier. It's the name of our page. Alright, so sorry, this should be inside the includes. Sorry, that's why I have this page. So we'll flash that. Now try to delete. Yeah, and the record is deleted successfully. And so that's how you can be able to edit and delete records. In our case, we were deleting and editing the suppliers. So in the next video, we'll be dealing with products, where we'll be managing the products in terms of adding them, displaying them, editing them, displaying them, and all that. So thanks for watching this video, and see you in the next one.